are facing serious shortages of food, water, medicine, and these are critical issues that need to be addressed. So I will wait. I'll speak more after I've heard his remarks. But clearly, Kenyans want to see some concrete action and not just words.
And some of the concrete actions being expected by Kenyans who are already speculating that perhaps the president can use this particular function, this particular occasion, to just crack the whip on the big ship, big fish. We're talking about corrupt senior government officials who've already recorded statements, already implicated, even though not guilty, not proven guilty by the court. But perhaps Kenyans are speculating and saying the president need to act today using this occasion. What is your say?
I think it's not a question of him just using this occasion or speculating. Let's face it. In any properly functioning system, if a cabinet secretary is a regular visitor to the ethics and anti-corruption or to the DCI, frankly speaking, he should not even wait for the president to pronounce himself. He should be able to say that these visitations that are so frequent are beginning to undermine the very basis of the government that he serves in, and he should quit. You know, this is the way I would look at it. So I don't think there should be any speculation here. The people in office who know that there are issues and they've been interrogated severally owe Kenyans one thing. If they cannot owe it to their boss, they owe Kenyans one thing: just leave office so that Kenya can move on.
What are some of the political implications to this particular move by the president? Because remember that each and every appointee is perceived a political appointee. So what will happen to the repercussions political?
No, you see, who is more important? The majority of the Kenyans or these individuals in office? I mean, why should we even speculate about whose priority works out first? The bigger obligation is to the Kenyan people, collectively, and not to the office bearers. Yeah.
In terms, you've mentioned there the cost of living, and many Kenyans are complaining about the harsh economic times that they're experiencing at the moment. Which particular kind of solution would you, if you were just to advise the president directly, how would you say, what would be the solution?
We are in a very difficult situation. But the most important thing at this point in time is that the president must rein in corruption and rein in wastage of public resources. Secondly, we must start living within our means. There must be a freeze on this massive public borrowing. That is a major step in that direction of correcting the situation, because it is true, Kenyans are hurting. And the more they hurt, the more they try to get the money through taxation, and this is only causing more anguish to the Kenyan people. So the president must really look at this seriously. Okay?
Thank you so much, Musala Mudava, the ANC leader there, just giving his remarks just moments before the State of the Nation address being expected to be delivered by the President of the Republic, Uhuru Kenyatta. What we know is that the Kenya Army has already mounted the Guard of Honor. It will be inspected by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Uhuru Kenyatta. And right now, we are expecting some activity any moment from now. We are also being told that the Deputy President's motorcade is actually having its way here, and those particular live pictures will just be brought to you very shortly, because right now what's just behind cameraman Charlo is that already there is a motorcade that is now coming just straight to the entrance of the National Assembly, and this is the Chief Justice David Maraga is just making his way to the main chambers of the National Assembly. I'll just repeat that this is Chief Justice David David Maraga just making his way to the main chambers, the main entrance of the main chambers of the National Assembly. And any moment from now, we are expecting other high-level government officials. We're talking about the Deputy President, William Ruto, also to be in attendance just in time to receive the head of state and also the chief guest of this particular function, the State of the Nation address. But right now we have to quickly go to take you to through a commercial break. But remember that it does not end here because there's more to come on the other side of this special broadcasting. any moment from now, we are expecting the deputy president now, through his motorcade.
Welcome to our continued coverage of the State of the Nation address, and we apologize for the technical hitches. We're addressing that, but nonetheless, we are still going big with our coverage of this. This is a significant event in the calendar of the country, and we shall be giving you details of what we expect, some of which are what is expected to be spoken about by the president, and it seems there are already hints from State House as to what is going to be discussed today, and these are found on the State House Twitter handle, where we are seeing a number of things being discussed, and some of them being corruption. For instance, let's just pick some of the tweets, and this is a quote by President Kenyatta saying, "I want everybody in Kenya to know that no matter your standing in society, we are all equal before the law. Cases against corrupt acts are being built against persons who may have thought themselves untouchable." And that is a quote by the president's speech. We also have another one saying the ongoing prosecutions will not be limited to senior public servants who betrayed their oaths of office, but also their accomplices in the private sector, including those professionals who aid in the laundering of stolen public funds. And this brings to play the conversation about corruption is not just one way. The government is not doing it only within itself, but it takes two to tango. And in this case, we see public funds being lost, partly because of the collaboration between the public servants and the private sector. What you're seeing is the preparations for the president's arrival, because he'll be coming and inspecting the Guard of Honor on Parliament Road, after which he's going to get into the precincts of Parliament, where he will later on address the nation and the Joint House of Parliament, as well as members of his cabinet, alongside Raila Odinga, who's the leader of NASA, as well as Musalia Mudavadi, who was speaking to Seth Olale not too long ago, and also the Chief Justice has also arrived at Parliament, all awaiting the president's arrival. And so this is the preparations. We usually see this ceremonial aspect because this is a significant day in the national calendar, and the president, like I said, is set to speak on corruption, and there's a number of tweets that are going to keep sampling on the things he's planning to speak about, not only on corruption, but also on other aspects of the big four, be it healthcare, education, and the likes, and we shall be updating you on this. But for now, let's cross over to the county of Nyeri, where Melita Oletenges is standing by to give us a brief on the same. Melita, what's happening in Nyeri, and what is the feel and the anticipation? I know we've spoken to you a bit earlier, but just give us some further updates.
Thank you so much. As you said, we are coming to you from Nyeri. We spent the better part of the day capturing the voices of the people regarding the State of the Nation address, which the president is expected to make today in the afternoon. And of course, just a recap of what has been dominating this conversation. Of course, a majority of residents feel that the president needs to address the corruption issue. And they're saying that it is time the president came out and take action against individuals who have been implicated in corruption and corruption deals. So we have been following up this among residents here in Nyeri, and I'm going to be speaking to one more resident just to get his sentiments. Pengine anza kwa jina lako kisha utueleze pengine matarajio yako kutokana na hotuba ya rais mchana wa leo itakuwa ni ipi?
Kwa majina yangu ni Isaac Wangai. Mimi ni mkaji wa hapa Nyeri, na ningetaka rais wetu aongee mambo ya corruption, kwa sababu huwa wanasema wanaimba kama wimbo tu, kwa sababu tunaambiwa kuna corruption na sisi tunaona tu, lakini tunangojea hatua ishukuliwe. Hakuna mtu ambaye tumesikia amepelekwa kotini na amefungwa, ili tuwe tunasikia vizuri. Kwa hivyo ningetaka rais wetu aongee mambo ya corruption. Kukifika kesho kuwe na mtu tunasikia amefungwa kwa sababu ya corruption. Mambo ingine ningetaka kuongea ni mambo ya wale watu wanakufa kwa shauri ya njaa. Kila wakati kukiwa na election tunasikia waheshimiwa wanaimba wimbo, hasa hapa Nyeri. Wanasema kuna maji itatolewa huko Mtoshania huko juu, alafu hiyo ipelekwa mpaka huko Turkana ipitie Kieni. Hawa watu wakisaidika na hiyo maji kukuza mimea yao, lakini hiyo ni wimbo tu. Tangu wakati walianza kusema hawajatenda kitendo. Kwa hivyo ningeomba mtukufu rais aongee hiyo mambo ya hiyo maji ipelekwa huko isaidie hawa watu, kwa sababu hata tukiwa tumesaidia na hatujawapea maji ili wajisaidie waanze kukuza mimea yao, hakuna mambo tunawasaidia. Hata tukiwapea chakula hapa na tuchange chakula mingi, hakuna kusaidia. Kusaidia ni wapelekewa maji huko waanze kujisaidia hawa wenyewe. Kwa hivyo ningesema rais wetu aongee hiyo mambo.
Tuzungumzie gharama ya maisha. Wengi wanasema kuwa uchumi umekuwa mgumu sana kwa mwananchi wa kawaida. Pengine maoni yako kuhusu pengine yale ambayo unataka rais azungumzie kuhusu uchumi, unatarajia nini haswa?
Ningetaka hasa aone, kama tuseme kila wakati tunasikia sisi tunalipa madeni. Kila mwaka ni madeni. Sasa ningeomba rais wetu ajaribu sana, aone ni vipi hii madeni hata atakatakata kidogo, kwa sababu tutakaa mwaka nenda mwaka rudi ni madeni tu. Sasa unaona, sasa tutakuwa maisha itakuwa ngumu sana, hasa kwetu, hata kwa wale tunalea. Kuna watoto wako nyuma yetu, na sasa hawa watoto kama madeni inatusidi sana, kwa hiyo itakuwa inasidi wale saa kuliko sisi. Kwa hivyo ningetaka aongee hiyo mambo na ajaribu kukatakata madeni.
Shukran sana. You've heard from a resident of Nyeri County there mentioning about a number of things, actually, saying that the issue of food scarcity is talked about, corruption, and he's also talked about the issue of debt that he is asking the president that he should address. Being told that the deputy president, William Ruto, has made his way to parliament, and of course the president, that is a clear indicator that the president will be making his way just shortly. So you've heard from a number of residents, and this is a conversation. This is something that people are looking forward to. I can tell you for sure that if you walk through the streets of Nyeri town, you'll see citizens paying attention to the television just to wait for the State of the Nation address. But from me here in Nyeri, I now hand over you to my colleague Ken Mijungu. Ken, over to you.
Thank you very much, Melita Oletenges. And of course, if this is what they call the stage is set, then indeed the stage is set. Most of the dignitaries have already arrived, paving way now for the arrival of the chief guest at this occasion, who is the president. He will be the one delivering the State of the Nation address for today, something he has done over 5 times. This will be the 6th time the president will be delivering the State of the Nation, which is expected to touch across many issues that bedevil this country. And obviously, we expect the president to take stock of what has succeeded so far. So in the last few minutes, the Chief Justice arrived here, and the Chief Justice is accompanied by other top leaders of both houses of Parliament, the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Senate. Very vital indeed, because this is a joint session of the House, where the House will be sitting together. It's one of the things that happens probably once or twice a year, depending on the time the president wants to invoke Article 132, 1B, or just to address Parliament. So the president is using this opportunity to address the nation and also to address the joint session of the National Assembly. And he's speaking to Kenyans through Parliament. And on top of the things we expect, the president to talk about is national unity, fostered by the handshake that took place sometimes last year. So we expect him to talk about how he has been working to unify this country. He might also give plans going forward on how he expects this country to be unified further. We know they've done a good job with ODM leader Raila Odinga since the handshake, and the country has relative calm, according to the observers who say that this is just calm, but it's better for the business environment and it's also better for the citizens to thrive. So national unity falls right at the top of the presidential address this afternoon. Apart from taking stock, we expect the president to touch on corruption and good governance. This has been a pet subject for the president and for the top leaders of the country, whereby they have taken to condemning corruption and urging the courts on, urging the DCI and the DPP and all agencies including the EACC, to move with speed to address the runaway corruption that has been witnessed in this country. So we expect this to be one of the major topics that the president will direct his speech this afternoon. And this takes us back to 2015 when the state of the nation was clouded at that time with a lot of corruption. The president received several names from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, names that we haven't seen any kind of conviction to date. So probably he will not go that direction again of mentioning the names, but we expect some radical proposals from the president, who will be talking about the corruption, the runaway corruption in the country. So we expect probably he'll have some radical measures that will be undertaken to stem corruption. And indeed, he has done quite some changes since 2015, from the Directorate of Criminal Investigation to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which had just a new director just the other day. Apart from having a new chairperson, we have seen those steps taken. We have seen a little reshuffle here and there. We've seen the suspension of procurement, and going forward, we have seen also the banning of further issuance of tenders and contracts in the government until the ones that are existing are concluded. So even as we wait for the president to arrive, we are certain that that is something that will form a huge substance of his discussion or of his speech this afternoon, that will be open to criticism and open to debate on the floor of the National Assembly. We understand that the deputy president is already here, and that's a good sign that the president is coming. Actually, we are told that President Uhuru Kenyatta, he's just driving in. So as soon as he takes to the parade, we'll be handing you over officially to the happenings right here at the National Assembly. But apart from corruption, the Big Four agenda is also something that we know he'll be mentioning. And even as we listen to what he says, we'll be looking at the progress that has been made so far. So President Uhuru Kenyatta, told, has just also arrived, signaling that indeed this function is officially beginning. But even as he takes to the parade, we know that also he will not fail to mention something on devolution, which is one of the major speeches he made in 2014 when he began the first State of the Nation address. So we see President Kenyatta is just disembarking from his motor vehicle, and he will inspect the guard of honor before getting into Parliament, where he will walk in with quite a number of leaders who are already waiting here, including the top leadership of the House. Already this is beginning. This is perhaps the first time that the president has really kept time. 2:30 is just about 4 minutes away, and he's already here. So this will last approximately 1 hour, and after that, he will walk to where they will have the ceremony, and he will interact with members of parliament and other dignitaries. And I now hand you over officially to the parade that has just begun. Check 1, 2.
Kwa majina, mimi naitwa Pastor Christine Chadi Mashanga, mzaliwa hapa Bamba. Nawahi kumbuka kwamba wakati mmoja watu walipoenda tafuta Mariakani chakula, wakaja wakafika njiani, gari ikaharibika na hawana matumaini kwamba watafika lini Bamba. Hapo ndio ilikuwa kizaazaa. Mtu alikuwa anafikiria boma lake vile ameliacha tangu asubuhi, tena yualala pale mahali, tena hiyo safari hajui ataondoka kesho ama kesho kutwa. Shida iliyokuwa hapa saa hii imepungua. Mashamba tumeimarika, biashara zimeimarika, watoto wanaenda shule. Manake wale wakati ule ilikuwa shule ikifika kama saa 12:30 kuna giza, hawezi. Lakini kwa wakati huu wanaingia madarasani, wanasoma vizuri sana. Yaani tunasikia tu kwamba tumejengeka katika serikali ya Uhuru Kenyatta. Safari ya Bamba si kesho tena, ni leo. Nami nitaimba. Safari he hoa, safari ya Bamba ni rero, safari ya Bamba ni rero.
And that marks the end of the ceremony outside here. And now the real business begins in the house shortly. President Kenyatta will be expected to be at the chamber where everyone is seated already waiting for that State of the Nation address. Now, the sitting today is a joint sitting of the National Assembly and the Senate. And this is one of those opportunities that even strangers are allowed into the chamber. We have the cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, we have ambassadors, we have a few governors, especially the governor of Nairobi, who are all in attendance for this ceremony, which will last approximately 1 hour, 1 hour 20 minutes, 1 hour 30 minutes, depending on the length of the speech of the president. Now, the opening will be done by the Speaker or the Speaker of the House, and probably it will be the Speaker of the Senate. Then we'll have the Speaker of the National Assembly, and the President will speak. They're the only people who will be allowed to speak this day. And after the speech, they will welcome the president, who will deliver the State of the Nation address. And on this day, we know top of the president's mind, going by what has been said, what he has kept on saying for the longest time, what has become into a song and a chorus that their allies have added their voice into, is the state of the nation as regards to corruption, the single most evil that is bringing this country down. So we expect the president to come up with concrete measures to stem corruption in the country. So that's top of the agenda. But also, it's not so far-fetched to think that the president will be talking about national unity. And this is the path he has taken, probably thinking of his legacy as the president. He is looking into leaving this country a unified country. So we also expect that he will be mentioning this and prominently in his speech. So we are listening to hear what else he will say about unifying this country. Just the other day, he was talking about nowhere to take the other part of the country that is about 48% did not probably vote for him. but are still in this country. So it's likely that the president will be talking also prominently on national unity. Then in his second term, the president came up with the Big Four agenda. Now, the Big Four agenda has been overshadowed by clouds of corruption, and the Big Four agenda, we have not seen quite a lot of steps taken towards achieving the Big Four agenda, just with about 3 years left into the end of his second or last term as the president. So we expect the Big Four agenda is something that will feature prominently this afternoon as the president takes to the podium to address the joint House of Parliament. And also in his first speech in 2014, touching on the state of the nation, the president talked about devolution, and devolution is likely to be something that he'll speak about, especially the fact that there has been a lot of allegations of corruption in the devolved government, and the auditor report has not been so favorable. In most of the auditor's report has not favored some of the counties, or most of the counties to be precise. So this is something he'll be talking about, and also the fact that the government resolved to be giving about 32% instead of the constitutional required 15%. So the president will be speaking about devolution, and all these things can also be divided into different areas of them. For example, on national unity, probably the president will be touching on the handshake, the dynamics, why this happened, and how far the country has come since the handshake. So that's very important, and probably he will once again talk about this in also relation to the relationship between himself and his deputy, and Raila Odinga, who is also part of the handshake. Now, fighting tribalism in the country is also likely to be some subtopic inside that one of handshake, and obviously this will boil down to the succession politics of 2022 and how this has also gone to polarize the country and the premature campaigns that we have witnessed. Now, on the state of corruption, we are not privy to his statement, but we know that the institutions that are involved in fighting corruption, the DCI, the ODPP, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, this will and must feature in his speech, because that's what most Kenyans that we have been speaking to the whole morning have been expressing themselves on, the state of corruption in the counties and what needs to be done to stem corruption. So strengthening those three institutions that are vital is very important in his speech. And many of Kenyans and us right here in the media will be breaking down that for you. And accountability in leadership is something that he'll find a way around, and he must speak about it. It's also key, and Kenyans have been expecting this and expressing themselves on accountability. Just the other day, we witnessed a court slapping a hefty bail of 100 million, which was later commuted to just about 10 billion and 30 billion in bail and bond or surety. So accountability is key, and it's something that we are looking forward. Also borrowing from his speech of 2015, when he spoke about accountability and indicted more than 150 people, including cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, parastatal heads, members of parliament. All those high numbers have not translated to any kind of conviction. People who are mentioned at that time have gone ahead to hold public offices. So we expect accountability to feature prominently. So is the role of the judiciary in fighting corruption at the corruption summit the other day at the judiciary. It was mentioned that judiciary seems to be the weakest link in the fight on corruption. So this is something that we definitely expect the president to talk about the role of the judiciary. The Chief Justice, who is the president of the judiciary, is already here, so he must touch to that. And if he doesn't touch on that, he will find a way around talking about accountability, and especially the role of the judiciary in fighting corruption, because the judiciary, as I said, has been blamed for being the weakest link in the fight against corruption. And on the state of the nation, again, the Big Four agenda. The Big Four agenda include universal health coverage, manufacturing, food security, and affordable housing. These are some of the things that we indeed expect the president to be mentioning specifically, and the steps they have taken in order to stem in order to go ahead with this, which is what the four major things that the president has said he wants to achieve by the end of his second term. This is how the president wants to be judged. So his big four agenda is universal health covering, manufacturing, food security, and affordable housing. And of course, there is that fifth agenda that has been snaked in, which is corruption. We have spoken extensively about corruption. So even as the assembly, the parliament sits and the floor waits for the president's arrival and the president to begin his speech, this is definitely something that we expect that the president will be touching on, not to preempt his speech, but definitely these are some of the things that are of concern to many Kenyans and the top leadership of this country. So we expect the president to be talking about this. And when he goes to the food security, this perhaps will be the first time the president will address directly the issue of drought and the hunger and the reported deaths that have been denied by several government agencies, including county and national government. So this could be an opportune moment for President Uhuru Kenyatta to, for the first time, speak about drought and hunger in especially the two counties of Baringo and the county of Turkana. So when he speaks about food security and hunger, we expect the economy to feature prominently because it's also directly proportionate to what goes to the county and what the counties have been using their funds, including equalization funds, to do. So the economy, we are looking at several areas of the economy, the cost of living. We are looking at the runaway debts, the huge national debt currently standing at about 5 trillion. We're talking about youth unemployment and unemployment generally and creating opportunities, which the Jubilee government has been attempting to do in the last 6 or 7 years of the reign at the top. So we're looking at unemployment as one of the things that the president would really want to touch on. So is the interest rate caps. Perhaps it reflects directly in our borrowing pattern, and it also reflects on how we do business with the banks, and most importantly, how the banking institutions do business with the government, which is their major business partner in this. So the interest rates caps, which has elicited debate since the capping was done a few years ago at 14%, is something that perhaps the president would want to address with the court outcome that we saw the other day, and of course the review. A high cost of living cannot miss the speech today. And finally, we are looking at the state of the nation as regards the devolution and the devolved units and how they have really enabled this country move forward in the 9 years after the constitution and just about 6 years after the devolved government began in 2013. So we're looking at the revenue allocation from the national government to the counties, and we are looking at the constitutional requirement of 15%. Perhaps this is an opportunity that the president will talk about the 32% and how the government has endeavored to try and bring more money to the counties. And probably we are also thinking the president will be looking at the utilization of these funds once they are sent to the counties and how the equalization fund has been of benefit to the counties. So this is also something we are looking at, and obviously he cannot touch on the counties and accountability without looking, on revenue allocation, without looking at accountability in the counties. We have had more than 3 governors who have been mentioned in corrupt undertakings in their counties or lack of proper accountability in their counties. So we are looking at the president specifically going on and on this and talking about the utilization of public funds in the counties and the accountability of the same. We have, as I said, 3 governors specifically who have been mentioned on corruption, the latest being Samburu governor. All right, we understand right now that the president is about to walk in. Once we see the speakers walking in, then we know that the president is in tow. So let's take you live to the National Assembly and listen to the State of the Nation address.
the speakers of both houses, Honorable Justin Muturi of the National Assembly, Honorable Kenneth Lusaka of the Senate, Mr. Michael Sialai and Mr. Jeremiah Nyengenye, clerks of both houses. It is a live broadcast brought to you by the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation in conjunction with the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. My name is Vareso Mwanga. On behalf of the entire crew, I welcome you to follow this joint sitting of the State of the Nation Address. Good afternoon and welcome.
Na maspika wa bunge la taifa, hali kadhalika bunge la Senate, yuko ukumbini tayari. Na msikilizaji, hizo zimekuwa ni
Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Okay, order members. Order members. Your Excellency, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces. The Right Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi, Honorable Members of Parliament, Article 1321B of the Constitution of Kenya requires the President to address a special sitting of the Parliament of Kenya once every year and at any other time. Further, Article 1321C requires the President to, among others, once every year report in an address to the nation all the measures taken and the progress achieved in the realization of the national values set out in Article 10 of the Constitution. In addition, Article 247 of the Constitution requires the President, in his capacity as the chairperson of the National Security Council, NSC, to report to Parliament annually on the state of the security of the Republic. In this regard, pursuant to Article 1321B and C1 and B of the Constitution and Senate Standing Order number 22.1 and 2, upon a request by the Presidency via letter reference number SH/5/22/volume 208, dated 7th March 2019, I gave notice of today's special sitting to the Honorable Senators by Gazette Notice number 2921, which was published in the Kenya Gazette on 26th March 2019. Accordingly, Honorable Members, this special sitting is properly convened. I thank you.
Your Excellency, the President, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, the Right Honorable Speaker of the Senate, Ken Lusaka, Honourable Members of Parliament. Article 132, Clause 1 of the Constitution of Kenya requires the President to address the nation once every year and at any time. In this regard, pursuant to Article 132, Clause 2, Clause 1, Paragraph B and C, Roman 1 and 2 of the Constitution, and the provisions of Standing Order number 22 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, by Gazette Notice number 2920, which was published in the Kenya Gazette on 26th of March 2019, I gave notice of this special sitting to the members of the National Assembly. Accordingly, honourable members, this special sitting is properly convened. Your Excellency, it is the custom of Parliament to recognize invited guests seated at the Speaker's row. I therefore wish to recognize the following guests in this order. The Honorable His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya and the President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the Honorable Justice David Maraga, the former Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, and the Africa Union's High Representative for Infrastructure Development in Africa, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, the former Vice Presidents of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable His Excellency Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, and the Honorable Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi. The Governor of Nairobi City County Government, the Honorable Mike Buvi Sonko, and the former Speakers of the Houses of Parliament, the Right Honorable Francis Xavier Ole Kaparo, and the Right Honorable David Ekwe Ethuro. They are all welcome to Parliament during this momentous occasion of the address by His Excellency the President. Honourable members of Parliament, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my singular honor and privilege to invite His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of Kenya Defense Forces to address this special sitting of Parliament. Your Excellency.
The Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Members of Parliament, fellow Kenyans, in accordance with Article 132 of the Constitution, indeed I am honored to report to Parliament the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of the national values set out in Article 10 of our Constitution, as well as the progress made in fulfilling our international obligations. Indeed, it is my pleasure to submit the same to this special sitting of the two Houses of Parliament and to the entire nation of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, the state of our nation is strong. We remain a country striving and ambitious, taking on our pressing challenges and not avoiding them. We do this because we know that the path to lasting cohesion, decent jobs for our people, can only be achieved in an environment where fairness, integrity, and the rule of law are observed by all citizens without exception. Mr. Speaker, as President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, I have heard the cries of our people and their stated hopes and aspirations for a better Kenya. When they elected me as their president, I committed to strive and unceasingly fulfill the trust and confidence that they placed in me, and I will not turn back on this commitment. I am well aware that the task ahead of us, no doubt, is enormous. But there can be no turning back in our quest to transform our national economy to become truly an engine for creating jobs and opportunities for Kenyans. There is no turning back on government reforms that are intended to improve service provision to all Kenyans. And there is no turning back on fighting all enemies of Kenya, foreign or domestic, so as to secure and to ensure that Kenyans and their property are safe. Mr. Speakers, there is no turning back on the obligations we have made in the Big Four agenda to environmental sustainability, to intergenerational equity, and to upholding a strong rule-based international system. There will be no turning back on the Building Bridges initiative that assures inclusion, cohesion, unity, and respect for all Kenyans. There will be no turning back on the war against corruption, as it is a just war and a war to prevent misuse of public resources for selfish interests by those who have been entrusted to manage them. We are not turning back because we are determined to gift our children a better Kenya than the one we inherited. A prosperous Kenya where the respect for the rule of law and integrity are accepted norms. Mr. Speaker, following the country's first general election under the new constitution, I took the oath of office as the first president elected under the new legal order. My first term laid the foundation for a better Kenya by building on the promise and aspirations of the new constitution as articulated under Article 10, and therefore set the stage to propel our country to greater security, health, unity, prosperity, equity, and justice. The national values and principles of governance epitomize the vision that Kenyans have for their nation. The 43 words are the promise we have made to ourselves and the generations to come. As we reflect on these values, let us ask ourselves as leaders in the public, as well as the private sectors, and indeed as well as ordinary Kenyans, how much we are paying heed to these values and principles in our own personal conduct. Across the length and breadth of this great nation, ordinary Kenyans continue to do extraordinary things that show that the flame of our national spirit burns brighter than ever before. Our men and women in various disciplines keep the flag of Kenya flying high at international events, bringing glory to our nation. In this regard, amongst many, the nation salutes Eliud Kipchoge and his compatriots who have continued to make our national anthem echo around capitals of the world. We are proud of our Peter Tabichi, who was recently voted the best teacher in the world, and he has demonstrated our aspiration and potential to deliver world-class educational standards. Our entrepreneurs and business leaders are driving forward our economy, which I am proud to say remains one of the largest and most vibrant on this continent. Leading the string of innovators is Roy Alila, who garnered global accolades for inventing smart gloves that convert sign language movement into audio speech. Mr. Speakers, these Kenyans remind us what we could achieve if we remain true to our national values. Indeed, on behalf of a grateful nation, I do thank those men and women who serve the Republic in whatever capacity, who uphold our values and our way of life, who defer to what is right, who show that our diversity is an asset, and all those who have paid the ultimate price to secure our freedoms and way of life. Mr. Speakers, devolution remains one of the new innovations of our new constitutional order. Since April of 2013, more than 1.7 trillion shillings have been transferred to the counties. Devolution has received the full and firm support of my administration, and together with an enabling and supportive Parliament, we have seen it transform lives, revive local economies, and bring service delivery closer to the people. There can be no turning back on devolution. The system is sound and has proven its value and contribution to national development. However, I do believe that its potential and value will be greatly enhanced by focus on service delivery, prioritizing development expenditure, unwavering commitment to integrity and anti-corruption, and strict commitment to value for money in procurement. This done, devolution will no doubt transform our nation. Mr. Speakers, Parliament remains a strident defender of our democracy, and I laud Parliament for its steady guiding hand as we implement our transformative agenda for the country and its commitment to playing its constitutionally mandated oversight role. Mr. Speakers, I wish to acclaim Parliament for its continued diligence, for in the period under review, 22 bills have been enacted into Acts of Parliament, with just 2 currently awaiting presidential assent. Some of the groundbreaking legislation that has been enacted from Parliament over the last year include the Kenya Coast Guard Services Act, which established our nation's first Coast Guard service, the Petroleum Act, the Energy Act, and the National Youth Service Act. Mr. Speaker, to facilitate the implementation of our programs under the Big Four, I urge both Houses of Parliament to fast-track the mediation of the Land Value Index Laws Amendment Bill, the Physical Planning Bill, the Irrigation Bill, and the Warehouse Receipt System Bill, as well as the Kenya Roads Bill. Mr. Speaker, the consideration and approval by Parliament of various protocols, treaties, as well as sessional papers continues to enhance Kenya's international standing in the community of nations, creating stability and predictability in our governance framework. During the period under review, various treaties and protocols have been ratified, including the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, the Tripartite Free Trade Area Agreement, and the EAC Protocol on Cooperation in Meteorological Services. I am pleased to note that Parliament has also approved the National Housing Policy and the National Policy on Climate Financing, and 2 sessional papers that will have tangible benefits on the day-to-day lives of Kenyans, and I look forward to continued positive engagement with Parliament in the quest for a better Kenya. Mr. Speaker, the state of our economy is also strong. Our broad-based economic growth averaged 5.6% over the last 5 years, outperforming the average global growth. In 2018, our provisional estimates show that the economy grew by 6.1%, and this encouraging performance was supported by strong public and private sector investments, as well as prudent macroeconomic policies. In 2018, economic growth was largely driven by the wholesale and retail trade, real estate, information and communication, and tourism. It is worth noting that despite the challenges facing the wholesale and retail trade, the sector has also attracted new international supermarket chains and continues to support the expansion of domestic players. Mr. Speakers, in 2019, we expect an even stronger growth of 6.3%, reflecting continued improvement in the business environment, political stability as a result of building bridges, as well as improvement in the environment associated with the execution of the Big Four agenda and sustained macroeconomic stability. Honorable Speaker, in the same reporting period, inflation averaged 4.6%, remaining within the set targets. Our official foreign exchange reserves averaged US $8.7 billion in the review period, representing 5.8 months of import cover. These reserves provide the country with adequate buffer against shocks in the foreign exchange market. Indeed, the Kenya shilling has held steady against major currencies, with an annual average exchange rate of about 101 to the US dollar. This was supported by a narrowing of the gap between our export of goods and services from 5.5% of gross domestic product in February of 2018 to 4.7% in February of 2019. Agricultural exports, particularly horticulture, receipts from tourism, and diaspora remittances largely explain the improvement in our current account position. In the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index 2019, Kenya's ranking improved 19 places to position 61 globally. This made our nation one of the most improved countries during the review period. It is our intention to build on this success to further improve our ranking to be among the top 20 by the year 2020, top 50 by the year 2020. Overall, our economic outlook remains positive, underpinned by the implementation of our transformative development agenda. Mr. Speakers, we remain true to our long-term strategy, the Kenya Vision 2030. Our medium-term plan of 2018 to 2021 is centered around the Big Four agenda. During this period, we expect the economy to grow at an annual average rate of 6.6%. And our focus is on social economic interventions in critical sectors that we believe will enhance the quality of life for all Kenyans in ways that are tangible and measurable. In manufacturing, my administration is prioritizing local motor vehicle assembly and manufacturing of spare parts. This initiative has witnessed Peugeot and Volkswagen assembly lines set up in Kenya. Since their revival, the two companies have jointly assembled 627 motor vehicles, and by the end of 2019, they will have assembled at least 1,500 vehicles, and this is a positive beginning for a sector that is expected to rapidly expand and make Kenya the regional motor vehicle assembly hub. This will create various opportunities for our people, particularly for our youth. Our program on universal health coverage is expected to ensure a healthier nation as the basis for social economic development. And in this regard, we have successfully rolled out the pilot phase of the program in the counties of Isiolo, Machakos, Nyeri, and Kisumu. The program has witnessed enhanced access to essential health services with an average increase across the pilot counties of 39% reported. We are on course for the full rollout of the universal health coverage in the year 2019-2020 in the remaining 43 counties. Honorable members, agriculture is the largest employer in the economy, accounting for 60% of total employment. In recognition of its central role, my administration earmarked the sector as a key pillar of the Big Four as we seek to ensure food security and nutrition for all Kenyans. Our reforms are aimed at being farmer-centric and are focused on reducing the cost of food, increasing agricultural value addition, and offering incentives for farming. To enhance food production at household level over the last year, we have constructed 4,400 water pans under the household irrigation water projects. The pans will store 6 million cubic meters of water, placing an additional 6,000 acres under irrigation. To address the perennial challenges in the sugar and maize subsectors, my administration commits to decisively act on the recommendations of the two sectoral task forces that are slated to report their findings later this month. I expect that the teams will propose bold and transformative interventions to revive and substantially grow in a sustainable way these important subsectors. Additionally, my administration has prioritized reforms in the coffee subsector and implemented numerous interventions emanating from the recommendations of the Coffee Task Force. These include the ambitious rehabilitation of 500 pulping stations in 31 coffee-growing counties. Mr. Speaker, with a view to comprehensively resolve the problem of undue delays in the payment cycle, we have also set up a 3 billion Cherry Advance Revolving Fund to be operational from July 1, 2019. Consequently, all coffee farmers across the country will be able to access the Cherry Advance at a modest interest rate of 3%. Mr. Speakers, access to decent and affordable housing is a basic human right that my administration is determined and committed to honor. We are fulfilling this through the Affordable Housing Program. To realize this vision, we have promulgated the Affordable Housing Development Framework Guidelines, providing the enabling policy and financing for the rollout of this program. We are now on track to deliver affordable housing to Kenyans. This life-changing program is being undertaken in partnership with county governments as well as the private sector. Indeed, Kenyans have already shown that they are ready for this program. Despite court case delays and initial delays, over 175,000 Kenyans have already registered under the voluntary scheme known as Boma Yangu. These Kenyans will undoubtedly be first in line for the allocation of new housing. Additionally, The affordable housing program is expected to create opportunities for local industry. In this regard, we have ring-fenced the supply of certain components, such as doors, windows, cupboards, for the exclusive delivery by micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. This will not only put money in the pockets of our local artisans, but also support the formalization of this industry. The delivery of the Big Four is on course, and we expect the private sector to take advantage of the policies and incentives in place and turn the four priority areas into mighty engines of wealth and job creation. Honorable Speakers, the realization of the Big Four is dependent on critical enablers, including energy, transport, education, water, information and communication, and technology. To provide reliable and cost-effective electricity that meets current and future demand, we have put in place measures to accelerate the development of the entire power generation, electricity transmission, and supply infrastructure. This will also support the realization of universal access to electricity by the year 2022. I am happy to report that installed capacity has increased from 1,768 megawatts in March of 2013 to the current 2,712 megawatts, with Lake Turkana wind, Gong wind, Garissa solar power plants joining the grid within the last year. In collaboration with development partners, we have made tremendous gains in scaling up connectivity over the last 6 years, with the number of electricity connections rising from 2.2 million in March of 2013 to 7.1 million as at March of 2019. The tangible impact on the lives and livelihoods of our people associated with the increased electricity connectivity cannot be gainsaid. With respect to road infrastructure, our agencies continue to upgrade new roads to bitumen standard, in addition to rehabilitating existing ones. Notable road projects completed in the last year are the 9-kilometer Dongokundu Miritini Mwache Road, the 47-kilometer Kisumu Kakamega Road, the 38-kilometer Chebilat Ikonge Chabara Road, the 35-kilometer Ojoro Rock Dondori Road, the 80-kilometer Kamatira Cheptongei Road in West Pokot, and the 38-kilometer Kisima Kibirishia Kina Roiro Road in Meru County. Within our capital city, we continue to rehabilitate major arteries, including Gong Road Phase 1, Githurai Kimbo Road Phase 2, Wayaki Red Hill Road, amongst others. Our intention is to position Nairobi to join the League of First World Cities. These interventions have facilitated faster and cheaper movement of goods and persons, connecting our people. Better still, the expansion and upgrading of our road network has mitigated traffic congestion and enhanced road safety in our major cities and municipalities. On rail infrastructure, we are on course to completing Phase 2A of our region's most iconic infrastructure project, the standard gauge railway line from Nairobi to Naivasha, which is now at about 90% complete. And I look forward to journeying with members from both houses on the inaugural SGR trip from Nairobi to Naivasha. The Madaraka Express remains a story of remarkable success and national pride, and indeed it has been listed amongst the top 13 most magnificent railway tours for 2019. Over 2.5 million Kenyans have traveled by Madaraka Express since inception in May 2018, and 3.9 million tons of cargo have been transported on the line. On air transport, we are seeing an upward trajectory in Kenya, and to facilitate this, we continue to upgrade our airports and airstrips across the country. Indeed, in October of 2019, Kenya was able to launch direct flights connecting Nairobi to New York. And this connectivity is expected to increase the number of tourists in the country, while opening up a large market in the United States for our export produce. Today, honorable speakers, our transformative agenda is visible to all. These infrastructure developments, in addition to supporting the realization of the Big Four, have opened up opportunities for big and small businesses and improved the livelihoods of many Kenyans. Honorable speakers, my administration recognizes the role played by micro, small, and medium enterprises in spurring the development of our country. The sector employs approximately 14.9 million Kenyans and contributes an estimated 28% of our gross domestic product. To unlock the latent potential resident in this sector, my administration has been working towards addressing the challenges of access to credit, training, and skills development. In this regard, we will be launching an SME credit guarantee scheme in a few weeks aimed at deepening their access to credit without being subjected to complex application procedures and collateral requirements. These interventions are critical to production of competitive goods and services for the domestic, regional, as well as global markets. Indeed, in respect to the leather value chain, a common manufacturing unit at Kariokor Market in Nairobi is nearing completion. Once fully equipped, this center will provide impetus to the local shoemaking industry and to professionalize as well as to standardize manufacture of shoes. We are also undertaking similar initiatives in the textile value chain at Uhuru Market, developing a center of excellence for the modern production of finished textile goods. The above intentions are intended to promote the values of social justice, inclusivity, and access for all, ensuring that the benefits of our growing economy are not just limited to a few people. To facilitate inclusivity and to enable appropriate planning for the needs of all persons, we are also this year rolling out the 2019 National Housing and Population Census, and that will happen later this year. This exercise, together with the National Integrated Identity Management System, commonly known as NIMS, will ensure that all persons resident in Kenya will be enumerated in order to provide accurate data that is required for proper planning at all levels of government. Additionally, it is expected that when fully implemented, a comprehensive one-stop shop for all population and national identity records will be in place. Honorable speakers, the national values are best realized through proactive reform measures in education. It is in our schools that we can best embed in our children human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusivity, and all the other values that we cherish and hold dear. And it is for this reason that my administration introduced curriculum reforms designed to better align our education system with our national values. These reforms are expected to mold a people who embody innovation and excellence. The result will be a globally competitive human capital base, having the tools for success in a fast-paced and dynamic world. Honorable speakers, in fulfillment of the same, in 2018, my administration adopted the policy on universal access to basic education. The policy seeks to ensure that all our children, enroll in primary school, and complete their secondary education with a 100% transition rate. This measure will go a long way to ensuring that all Kenyans have access to equal opportunities and a chance to further their passions. Our aggressive push of this agenda has this year seen us achieve a 100% transition rate, the highest on the African continent. Honorable members, to address the pressure on school facilities across the country, my administration has prioritized development of school infrastructure for the fiscal year 2019-2020. I also, today, call on all members to act in solidarity with our children and approve the education budget as per our request. Secondly, I also urge members of the National Assembly to prioritize allocation of the constituency development funds towards school infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, there is no turning back on the commitment to ensure that no child is left behind. As part of the tertiary education reforms, my administration has implemented a rejuvenation of the vocational training institutions to build on the skills needed to contribute to nation building, and in particular the manufacturing pillar of the Big Four. Over the last 3 years, my administration has set aside an unprecedented amount of resource towards supporting students joining technical and vocational training institutions. We are a country, Mr. Speaker, we are a country blessed with natural resources, which, if properly managed, will transform in a big way our nation and the welfare of our people. We, however, must appreciate that these resources are finite, and in that context, it must be our solemn duty as a state to manage these resources sustainably for the fair and equitable benefit of both present and future generations. Mindful of this duty, my administration has developed and will be presenting before this session of Parliament the Sovereign Wealth Fund Bill. The bill proposes creation of a fund and provides a legal framework to guide the investment of revenues from oil, gas, minerals, and other qualifying natural resources. The fund as proposed in this bill comprises of 3 parts, notably a stabilization fund, an infrastructure development fund, and a future generation fund. It is important to underscore that other than the cost of services of those entrusted to manage the fund, all monies in the fund will be used to finance critical national development programs in order to ensure sustainability. Honorable Speakers, sustainable development is a constitutional imperative and one of the national values. Sustainable development remains a core consideration within my government, guiding the outlook and implementation of our policy, programs, and projects across the board. As the host nation of the United Nations Environmental Programme, Kenya remains a global leader in environmental conservation and sustainable development. My administration has spearheaded the implementation of various environmental initiatives, including interventions for the sustainable exploitation of the blue economy, sustained the ban on environmentally harmful classes of plastics and polythene carrying and packaging materials, enhanced the protection and promotion of our nation's forests, in line with our commitment to achieve a minimum of 10% forest cover by the year 2020, and interventions with regard to water and air quality. These interventions not only protect the environment, but also create business and employment opportunities through the green economy. Indeed, as a result of our interventions, Kenya is today a global leader in green energy, with 85% of our energy mix coming from renewable sources. Mr. Speaker, I am delighted to update this House on the progress we have made fulfilling our international obligations and positioning Kenya as a leader in the region, continent, and globally. Kenya has always and will continue to fulfill her international obligations as a responsible member of the community of nations. We do so conscious of the fact that fidelity to international law and commitment to our international obligations is critical to the structured management of international and diplomatic relations and will promote our pursuit of common interests with other states. Kenya is a party to over 280 multilateral treaties, and in the past 1 year, we have ratified 3 multilateral treaties. These instruments will enhance market access for Kenyan products in Africa, share critical information, and generate wealth and jobs for Kenyans. My government continues to lobby for and to participate in senior positions within various international organizations. Honorable Speakers, Kenya's election to the AU Peace and Security Council in 2019 and our strategic decision to vie for a non-permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council for the period 21 to 2022 are geared towards affirming Kenya's historic pride as a leader in regional peace and security. During the period under review, Kenya has invested in robust diplomatic engagements at a bilateral and multilateral level in furtherance of our strategic national interests. These include engagements within and with regional partners such as Ethiopia, Namibia, and Uganda, and globally with the United States of America, Canada, France, China, and the United Kingdom, among other peer jurisdictions. Building a better Kenya, honorable speakers, is ultimately the desire of every Kenyan. But we must be alive to the reality that this noble goal cannot be achieved if we are operating in disharmony. Every one of us, honorable members, must appreciate the importance of unity and cohesion in this pursuit. We all know the damage that we have suffered in the past as a result of discord amongst ourselves. Indeed, it has been and it remains an urgent agenda of mine to bring harmony, unity, and civility to the political landscape and discourse in this country. And that is what informed the Building Bridges initiative, commonly known as the Handshake. Honorable speakers, in all our cultures, a handshake is an expression of goodwill, friendship, trust, and reconciliation. It is synonymous with peace. Indeed, our handshake has been followed by millions of handshakes across the length and breadth of the Republic. Many leaders across the country and at every level of government have opted for a renewed politics of unity. And this has given Kenya a new and stable platform upon which we can rise above individual and sectarian interests, religious divide, and partisan politics as we all together build a better, stronger, and more prosperous Kenya. We know very well that we were successful in securing our independence because as a people we were united. Unity was our key weapon. Therefore, honorable members, we cannot and we are not turning back on uniting the country. We have chosen the hard road. We have chosen the hard road of building unity and cohesion against the easy road of division. We are a greater people for it. Indeed, already the Building Bridges initiative is engaging Kenyans across the entire length and breadth of our country, and soon we will have an opportunity to comment on their findings and recommendations. Against this backdrop, honorable speakers, I reaffirm a commitment previously made, and which I hope this House this year will pass, of designating a Kenya shillings 10 billion fund to heal the wounds of historical grievances which have long poisoned our politics and strained communal relations. With Parliament's help and through the affected communities, we will be applying the fund towards establishing symbols of hope across the country through construction of heritage sites, community information centers. And these will remind us and our future generations of the journey taken towards reconciliation and healing. Mr. Speaker, the unity that we are pursuing is not only between brothers and sisters within our borders, but also the unity of brothers and sisters that form the East African community and the greater continent of Africa. The path to prosperity for individual African states lies in promoting inter-Africa trade, integration, building bridges between our communities and nations that recognizes that we have far more in common with each other than we have as differences. Honorable Speaker, only recently in Mombasa, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of Uganda, recently remarked that the integration of Africa is centered on three issues: prosperity, security, and fraternity. When we talk about integration, we are talking about prosperity of families of Africa. We are talking about the prosperity of business groups in Africa and creating space for shared prosperity. Honorable Speakers, Kenya's prosperity, security, and fraternity lies in even closer unity with our partners in the EAC at the first level, and thereafter wider regional and continental alignments. My administration remains committed to maximizing the benefits for Kenya by mutually deepening economic and eventual political integration of the East African community. In line with the spirit of Pan-Africanism, I also wish to extend our gratitude to the African Union for appointing one of our own to spearhead infrastructural connectivity across the continent. This is key to actualizing the shared prosperity of the African people through promoting trade between our brothers and sisters and further strengthening our bond of unity in this great continent. Honorable Speakers, turning to security, I am proud to say that the state of our national security is also equally strong. As an island of peace in a conflict-prone and fragile region, Kenya nevertheless faces challenges from transnational crimes such as money laundering, terrorism financing, smuggling of narcotics, human trafficking, and the trade in illicit small arms and light weapons. In the past year, our country continued to strengthen its alliances and partnerships for security. The skills and capabilities of our defense, security, and intelligence services have grown in leaps and bounds. And as a country, we are much better prepared to address the threats to our national security. Today, we honor the brave men and women who have paid the ultimate price for our security. We thank the individual Kenyans who are willing to speak up bravely against radicalization and criminality, and for standing up to serve their fellow Kenyans. And we announce again to our enemies and the world that Kenya as a nation cannot be stopped by their plots and evils. Our will to greatness, to cohesion and unity, to development and prosperity, and to peace and security will never be turned back or aside. Our practical efforts reflect these spirits. Our response to external and transnational security threats has been determined reforms to our immigration system's integrity and the strengthening of our border security and management. Our border points are better managed, and the establishment and continued expansion of the new border police unit is deterring, detecting, and disrupting threats to our security. We have effectively adopted today a follow-the-money approach to investigations and prosecutions that will continue to be strengthened and applied across the range of serious crimes, including economic ones. We have seized and destroyed confiscated narcotics while continuing to interdict smuggled contraband and counterfeit products. Indeed, the brave men and women of the Kenya Defense Forces stand tall, protecting the homeland from external threats. They also serve in foreign lands as part of a global commitment to promoting and protecting peace and security. Within our borders, our law enforcement agencies and security officers are constantly detecting, deterring, dismantling, and destroying threats to the people and the state. They sacrifice selflessly so that Kenyans can live in safety and freedom. My administration has continued to encourage participation of our people in promoting national security and in protecting communities. Over 15,000 Nyumba Kumi clusters have already been established across the country. The unique national innovation of county action plans to prevent and counter violent extremism are also being rolled out across the country. Kenya is a country that believes in giving second chances. To those who are genuinely seeking to return to a path of legal conduct and to embrace our constitutional values. And in this regard, we are undertaking initiatives to disengage, rehabilitate, and reintegrate returnees who have been members of listed terrorist groups. We will continue to press the war against terrorist groups and networks, as well as their facilitators. But key to this is continuing to strengthen our legal tools against these groups so that they are unable to take advantage of our democracy and our open society to hide in plain sight while planning to perpetrate their crimes against our people. Our nation will not turn back from the path of democracy and the rule of law because of the actions of a few criminals. However, we remain unshakably committed to our values in this, and I truly believe that we shall prevail. Honorable Speaker, in recognition of the fact that our law enforcement agencies, and in order for them to effectively discharge their duties, they need to be empowered and appropriately capacitated. We are therefore undertaking enhanced training and improvements in welfare, more effective use of technology, equipment, and far better coordination between and within parties. Honorable Speakers, almost 2,000 CCTV cameras are now working in Mombasa and Nairobi, offering real-time 24-hour security monitoring. And this has greatly assisted our police in resolving complicated crimes. To foster security, the government has also repossessed 5,050 assorted weapons illegally held by civilians as part of the ongoing firearm verification process. Honorable Speakers, Kenya leads the region in developing a vibrant digital commercial sector. And in this regard, we have developed a national cybersecurity strategy, enacted the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, implemented a national cybersecurity training initiative, and established specialized teams with defensive cyber warfare capabilities in an endeavor to protect our economy from cyber crimes. Honorable Speakers, honorable members, from the foregoing it is clear that the state of our nation is strong, vibrant, and I believe brimming with promise. However, Mr. Speaker, corruption and impunity endangers each and every one of these gains. It compromises on the promise of devolution, our economic growth targets, the realization of the Big Four. It compromises access to education. It compromises our security, human dignity, and the rule of law, and by extension, the very existence of our republic. Corruption and impunity create social distortions and divisions, fuels inequality and poverty, destroy the fabric of our society, and diminishes the vitality of our nation's upcoming generations by setting the wrong example for them. As I said earlier, there is no community, no religion, no moral code in Kenya that endorses stealing and abusing positions of responsibility. Africans, no matter their heritage or where they are in this continent, have ethical and moral principles as core to their cultures. The magnitude of the war against corruption we are fighting today is unprecedented, and it is taking place within our core institutions, Parliament, the executive, the judiciary, county governments, and also in our religious institutions, as well as private sector and professional bodies. While past administrations made attempts to deal with the challenge, the problem remained enormous and required more determined focus. Honorable Speaker, following my proclamation on anti-corruption in 2015, my administration embarked on a program to deepen the fight against corruption through strengthening and resourcing the institutions charged with this most noble duty. Since then, honorable speakers, we continue to witness the highest levels of engagement and action on this previously taboo subject. For the first time in our nation's history, 8 cabinet secretaries, 8 principal secretaries have had to step aside to give way for investigations and prosecutions, a concept previously unknown in public sector management. Honorable Speakers, 7 current and former governors and over 30 chief executive officers of state corporations are under active investigation or prosecution for various corruption-related offenses. In several cases, banks and other financial institutions have been fined for breach of regulatory duty. Infidelity with the law upon institution of any charges against a public or state officer, my administration has dutifully relieved the office holder of their public duties. Indeed, just this morning, I have exercised the legal instrument revoking the appointment of a High Court judge recommended for removal for corruption-related offenses. These are the outcomes of a dedicated and resolute government undertaken within the framework of the rule of law. Therefore, honorable members, to safeguard these outcomes, those institutions charged with this responsibility need to be strengthened, not weakened. But even with the success we have made, we cannot as yet celebrate. The challenge is still with us and required more concerted efforts to eliminate it. Honorable members, Kenyans have spoken loudly and challenged us as leaders to do all that it takes to eradicate this cancer. This they did during the National Anti-Corruption Conference held in January of this year, where they tasked me, the Speakers of Parliament, the Chief Justice, and the Council of Governors to commit to various demands that would entrench and widen the fight against corruption. Mindful of my cardinal responsibility, which is to serve Kenyans, as bestowed upon me by the Constitution, my administration has opted for an all-out assault on corruption. In this endeavor, and in pursuit of this noble goal, my administration has continued to strengthen the investigative, law enforcement, and prosecutorial functions of government and embrace the multi-agency approach to encourage joint intelligence sharing, investigation, and prosecution. And these measures have already reaped visible benefits. Honorable members, it is not enough to merely jail and fine those who have looted from our public coffers. The wealth stolen from Kenyans must be returned to its owners, the people of Kenya, with a clear message being that corruption does not pay. In this context, that we have entrusted into the asset recovery agreements, we have entered into asset recovery agreements with foreign countries in pursuit of a robust restitution strategy. In the reporting period, the Asset Recovery Agency has investigated 20 cases and preserved assets worth 1.1 billion. Assets worth Kenya shillings 72 million were forfeited to the government, and further, recovery proceedings on corruptly acquired property valued at Kenya shillings 7.5 billion were instituted. Additionally, assets worth Kenya shillings 2.5 billion were recovered, while bank accounts holding Kenya shillings 264 million were frozen pending determination of recovery proceedings. We have also introduced new accountability measures applicable at all stages of the public finance management cycle as a critical prevention strategy. Honorable Speakers, honorable members, we must accept the truth. That is, one or two branches of government cannot hope to resolve this problem on their own. And that is why we look up to the judiciary to do their part, to apply the law firmly and fairly, and for Parliament to uphold high standards, mindful of the strategic interests of the nation in the exercise of their legislative and oversight mandate. We need to ensure that corruption cases are heard and determined on a priority basis. Kenyans are waiting to see more convictions and far less cynical exploitation of court processes to protect a few. Indeed, I particularly urge the judiciary not to appear to protect their own or to allow the abuse of privilege in the case where their officials are suspected of or have been under active investigation for corruption. In saying this, Honorable Chief Justice, I do not, for 1 minute, presume to direct the judiciary or Parliament. That is certainly not my constitutional place. But it is indeed my duty as the head of state to remind every arm of government of their solemn duty and the high expectations of Kenyans as espoused in our national values. Mr. Speaker, I also urge the county governments to work with the national government in this most important task of moral reawakening. Equally important, I urge every public and private institution in Kenya to join us in waging this war against corruption and economic crimes. If you love your country, you should reject corruption and all those who steal the sweat of your countrymen. This, honorable members, is one war I am certain we shall win. Honorable members, I must say that I've been under pressure that who am I sacking? But no. But I must, however, caution that the pursuit of the corrupt will be undertaken strictly within the remits of the law. It will not be done through vigilante justice and pitchfork protest. Though media narratives rally our resolve as they should, our actions will not be based on condemnation before one has been heard. The cornerstone of our democracy is the rule of law and the principle of due process. And the principle of due process is a critical anchor of that principle. We must aspire abidingly to this ideal and ensure that we do not pursue justice in one area through injustice in another. I remain confident in our investigative and prosecutorial institutions to diligently deliver justice on the strength of the evidence and in fidelity to the law. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as I have said and done before, I once again undertake that anyone whose case goes before court will be removed from government, and any individual will thereafter have to answer his case before a court of law. Once again, Mr. Speaker, I wish to emphasize our place in history and the national endeavor to strengthen rather than weaken our investigating and prosecuting agencies. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, honorable speakers, I have spoken at length on what we have achieved in pursuit of our development agenda and the challenges that we still need to confront so as to realize the better Kenya we all desire. But I must once again make it clear that we must work together, friends. The executive, the judiciary, Parliament, citizens, if we are to deal effectively with the challenges standing in our way. And I count on all of you and on all Kenyans as we move ahead with this struggle. There will be no turning back. There will be no sacred cows and no compromise. The fight must be won because it is a fight for the soul of our nation. The values of integrity, hard work, and sacrifice must be reinstated and held dear in the eyes of our children, and I intend to be the president that delivers that future. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it is now my pleasure to submit to Parliament the following 3 reports as required by the Constitution. A, report on measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values 2019. B, report on progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic 2018. And C, report on the state of security of Kenya 2018. Mungu na wabariki na walinde. Asanteni.
Okay, order, members. Honorable members, you may be upstanding. Your Excellency the President, the Speaker of the National Assembly, honorable senators, honorable members of the National Assembly, it's now time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, 9th April 2019 at 2:30 p.m. in the Senate chambers. I thank you.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, honorable members of the National Assembly, the National Assembly stands now adjourned until Tuesday, the 23rd of April at 2:30 p.m. All members, order, they will be order in the House. Order members, all members and guests are invited to the Parliament courtyard for a reception, but you are, however, requested to remain standing in your places until His Excellency the President and the Speaker's procession leaves the chamber. I thank you, now, members. Excellency.
There you have it, the much-awaited State of the Nation address. The much-awaited State of the Nation address by His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, delivered right here in the National Assembly chambers in this joint sitting of the National Assembly and the Senate. The exit procession currently on hold,
with President Uhuru Kenyatta having given some telltale signs that probably this time round the speech that he was going to give is going to have far-reaching ramifications. And probably even in his speech, as he spoke on the floor of the House, he said that there are those who really expected that he was going to fire people, but that has not come to fruition. Remember, there has been condemnation of the state with regards to what they have been wanting the presidency to do with regards to fighting corruption, as
they insist that what has been coming out of State House, out of the presidency, out of the agency has just been talk. And probably that has even been heightened today with President Uhuru Kenyatta's speech on the floor of the House addressing the joint houses of Parliament, that is the National Assembly and Senate. And most members of Parliament who are here, it was not full house, not all 416 were here. We do understand that all of them, some of them are even in America as they attend to other matters. So what do we get today? President Uhuru Kenyatta has spoken on what will be happening from now on, and he's even touched on the fact that if you are now taken to court, if you do a work for the government, this is including ministers and all that, the moment you step in a courtroom, then there's a probability that you will now have to vacate office as investigations or as the court case continues. And that has come out clearly as he spoke about it in the last as he finished his speech at that particular time. President Uhuru Kenyatta has also repeated the same sentiments that he has been saying all along with regards to having faith in the investigative agencies that we have in the country, that is the DCI, the ESCC, and also the DPP. And he is saying that these bodies are mandated with fighting corruption, and what he will not allow is for politicians to come in and actually attack these bodies. So with him having so much confidence in the bodies that fight corruption, then President Uhuru Kenyatta says that let them continue. But another thing that he has also done, President Uhuru Kenyatta has turned the heat on the judiciary, saying that the judiciary, some of the cases that are being taken to court with regards to fighting corruption are taking so much time they're taking so much time. Remember just the other day, the courts were able to give the governor of Samburu 100 million shillings as a cash bail, but that was reversed for barely 48 hours later. So what President Uhuru Kenyatta, even pointing out to the Chief Justice, who's among those who attended this joint sitting of Parliament, this State of the Nation address, he has actually called upon him not to even protect some members of the judiciary who are even thought to be corrupt. Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta in his speech has even gone ahead to say that this morning he has revoked an appointment of a judge with regards of a judge who had been nominated, and this is within the corruption lines. So President Uhuru Kenyatta says that yes, I am here. I am fighting corruption as Kenyans are asking about me. But what Kenyans want is to see results. Kenyans wanted to see people fired, but he is insisting that I cannot go that route unless I follow due process. There is a process that needs to be followed. And he says that fighting corruption cannot just be left to a few arms of government, one or two branches of government. It has to be a collective responsibility. You will have noticed if you are watching this State of the Nation address, President Uhuru Kenyatta, even when he was speaking about having been expected to fire people, he laughed. He himself laughed. And there was a lull. Then what preceded was members of Parliament trying to talk about what is trying to shout with regards to please give us results, please give us results. So it is something that so many wanted to see. Yet President Uhuru Kenyatta has also enumerated what his government has achieved so far with regards to moving the country forward. And he says that there is so much that his government has been able to do, and yet we are the ones who are not seeing it. There is also the point of the assets recovery that he has touched upon very much. And President Uhuru Kenyatta has mentioned figures that have been able to be recovered so far, monies that are running into billions and billions of shillings. We are seeing here Honorable Raila Odinga here. Probably if we could get to him and talk to him. Excuse me, sir. How are you, sir? Probably what was most striking about what was happening and the speech by the president, most people expected such results. Did we get what we wanted? The people expected people to be fired and all that. Do you think that it fell short of what we expected?
I don't think it is a duty of the president to fire anybody. This is supposed to be a State of the Nation address to say what, in his view, is the nation doing. And I think in that regard, he did very well by highlighting key issues that affect the life of the people of Kenya, stating where we're coming from, where we are, and the destination where we want to go.
It might not be his decision to fire people, but probably he could recommend some far-reaching ramifications with regards to fighting corruption. Today, as it stands, probably Kenyans feel shortchanged with that speech.
The thing, which Kenyans have you talked to? This is the media. This is how you mislead the people. Because which Kenyans you feel cheated? Kenyans have just heard what the president said. He said that there will be no compromise in the war against corruption. And I share that fully, that there should be no compromises. But he also said that everything is going to be done within the rule of law. That it's not going to be a jungle kind of law where somebody is just picked and beaten up and jailed, which is right. But this must be fast-tracked. I think the frustration of the people of Kenya, the time that is taken to do these investigations, that there must also be an end to investigations and prosecution. I think in that regard, I totally agree with the rest of the country, that we need to move with speed and ensure that the people who are continuing to loot the wealth of this country, who are denying this country development, must face the law, and the sooner the better.
He also talked about the judiciary and the slow pace, and he actually even spoke to the Chief Justice and said that it cannot be just one or two branches of government that are going to fight this. He even went ahead to say that some members of the judiciary were mentioned, and he's even revoked an appointment of a judge. Do you also feel like the judiciary is not moving at the same pace with regards to this war on corruption?
I think the judiciary is part and parcel of this country. We are not expecting angels from heaven here. And I think that this war really ought to have started with the judiciary, to clean up judiciary and the general legal framework. Because as you know that the lawyers, the law firms which actually hide most of this loot in their clients' accounts, which are in themselves untouchable. So we really need to start there to ensure that the members of the judiciary themselves are clean so that they can stand in judgment against other Kenyans. But if you start with a corrupt judiciary, you cannot really expect to get proper justice in the country.
So do you believe some members of the judiciary need to be changed for us to achieve this?
It's not a question of members being changed. Just investigate judiciary the way you investigate everybody else. So that if you find that there's a judge who is corrupt, a judge who is making some rulings which are biased because of bribes or commissions that have been given, and then he needs to deal with them. So nobody in this war should be above the law. This is what we're saying.
Thank you very much. Well, that has been opposition leader Raila Odinga, who was one of the members who sat at the Speaker's gallery trying to listen to President Uhuru Kenyatta and his speech with regards to what he has been able to capture. But then again, I'd also want to talk to members of Parliament who sat there and probably hear what the expectations were and why your expectations met when President Uhuru Kenyatta read his speech on the floor of Parliament.
Yeah, to a large extent, I think my expectations were met because I expected him to say something about the famine situation and the mitigations that can be put in place, because we cannot be a country that every year we are dealing with the same thing. Like now we are waiting for the floods will be. So I saw that he put it very clearly that they have done so many water pumps that will be able to hold water during the rainy season, and then that water can be used to work on food security. So to that extent, I'm very happy. Okay, I know most of us expected him to be more hard or to punch at the issue of corruption, but I think that the course, the direction that he took is also good, because let us leave the law to take its course. So to that extent, I think it was good enough.
Well, I have a panel. I'll go to him, then I'll be able to come. What are the expectations met?
The speech did not meet the expectation of Kenyans. The head of state expressed a lot of lukewarm in his actions. He was not very clear and very decisive on fighting corruption. He has repeated the same old stories, which he has repeated in 2013. It's very clear that he wants the fight to be won by the DCI and DPP and the judiciary. he didn't want to commit himself on the fight of corruption. That was very clear indication, and he felt slightly that anybody who's going to be convicted in court should step aside. That is the only close indication of his fight towards corruption. As far as the 10 billion shillings is concerned, he has apportioned 10 billion. In last session, he has also apportioned 10 billion, but there were no similar actions which have been done, particularly for healing for Kenyans. We people from northern Kenya, we have been affected by Wagala incident. The same amount of money has been given, but to date, he has repeated and reiterated the same, but there is no similar action. On the issue of not turning back on the building bridges, he was very clear. On the economy, he was very clear, but all of them, there were no bold strategies on how to achieve the Big Four agenda. You can see there was no economic growth, which he said there's going to be a transformative economy. There were no clear indications on how the economy is going to improve. It was very clear incident. So clearly what I'm saying, he has not met the threshold for Kenyans as far as this speech is concerned. Thank you very much.
Yes, my expectations have not been met as I expected. Corruption remains a thorn in the flesh. He did not come out with areas where corruption has occurred and what he intends to do with the corrupt people within there. The good thing that I saw was on education. He highlighted the new curriculum and how the new curriculum is going to be accessible to every child and that we shall have 100% transition rate. So that area of education is highly well done. Then he mentioned something about coffee. He forgets about the other cash crops. He forgets about fish and all that. Why the coffee industry being given more funds to improve it? So there's other cash crops that are not being mentioned. And so I'm quite disappointed about that.
You're disappointed in the speech?
Yeah, well, in some areas, not 100%. There are some areas it's performed well, like example, the one I've mentioned about education, how the new curriculum is going to be accessible to every child, and that there will be 100% transition rate. He really dwelt on education very, very well. But certain areas are still lukewarm. They are not well emphasized, and we still have a lot of question marks. There's no implementation process. What are we going to do with issues, these race challenges that we face? Those did not come out.
Well, also, Kiharu Member of Parliament has proposed some changes to the anti-corruption law, and probably, please calm down, and do you think that President Uhuru Kenyatta has actually lived up to what you're trying to push in Parliament with regards to the anti-corruption law and how we need to fight corruption in the country? Was the speech sufficient enough?
I think it was sufficient because one of, as you have rightly put it, my bill is seeking to enhance, especially the side of punishment for those who are convicted in terms of corruption and economic crimes. And I think the President's speech was very consistent with what I'm proposing. But even beyond corruption, because you steal what is there, there is now the production part of it. I'm especially very happy because the President, for the first time, remembered our coffee farmers. Remember where I come from, that is Murang'a County. We are predominantly a coffee growing area. And I have had a lot of robust plans from the government in terms of coffee. But also more importantly, unajua Murang'a ndio nyumba ya biashara yote ya Kenya. I have had the President today remembered our SMEs, and from I think next month or so, they'll be guaranteed to take a loan from financial institutions by government, so that we have a robust private sector that will take Kenya forward and especially create employment for the youth of this country.
Mheshimiwa President Uhuru Kenyatta has also been very categorical about the building bridges and how it has to stay because it has moved a long way into helping the country. What are your feelings on this, and do you support that move on the President saying that the handshake is here to stay?
I want to thank the President first of all for uniting this country. It's hard it's hard to bring all those leaders together. Today we saw Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Raila Odinga, William Ruto, and I think that's the way to go for this country.
Well, thank you very much. The studio is also informing me that also there are those who feel, and I can see a lot of smiles that are here, and all of them are of the feeling that the President has either fallen short or has also been able to meet their expectations with regards to what has been happening. And all this is happening at a time when there is so much that is happening in the country with regards to all this. And also here is Mheshimiwa Alice. Probably you could tell us, what are your views on what the president has been able to say, his speech, and has it actually met your expectations and the expectations of Kenyans as one of the representatives of the people?
I think there is an area that was not addressed. I want to congratulate the president for trying to balance his speech today, his address to the nation. But I think there is an area Kenyans were possibly expecting regarding the pricing of the essential commodities, even if it's not a budget today. How the interventions of the fact that there is no money, how the Kenyans are going without food on their table, and what immediate, before the long-term interventions can come. And especially, talking about to protect our country, our import, our farming, our trade, free entry of goods and commodities. I think there is an area that Kenyans are feeling that they are not comfortable in terms of what is happening around the usual traditional agricultural products in this country. And I'm speaking about the entry of eggs in the country, the entry of fish in our markets, the fact that even from the Mombasa, our port, the movement of goods and things like that are still affecting the income around the individual and the normal person, ordinary Kenyan. But also I think that there were some Kenyans expecting that he will name a few names to leave their offices. I could also see some of my colleagues in parliament had an expectation that he will ask people to step aside. He has done that on the floor of the House. But I think the president has recognized that we cannot work like a vigilante group as a nation. The rule of law, we cannot practice impunity. I want to support him on that. But also he has indicated that if you have been charged, I think it is time to allow prosecution, even if not sacking, but within the within the law, there is a way that you can leave the office and allow your case to be quickly determined, which then means the courts must move with speed to determine cases of those who have been charged. So I think it's somehow he tried to balance, and therefore the country is likely to feel to bring he has brought some political temperatures down.
Well, also before I move to the others, one of the most affected places when it comes to drought is Turkana County. And I see Mheshimiwa here, they refer to you as Bishop. Do you think that President Uhuru Kenyatta has been able to address the issue of drought, which has actually affected your county more? Has it been addressed adequately, or do you think that from his speech, some of the directives that he has been given, can be able to be picked up and actually made into policy to help the people in Turkana County?
Yeah, I'm Lodepa Nakara MP for Turkana Central. Today's speech for the president actually has addressed some of the issues that we were expecting him to address, especially on the issue of the agriculture, on the issue of the irrigation, on the issue of the water. So if the county government and the national government are going to cooperate together and follow what the president has said, the issue of anger in Turkana will be history. So for me as a member of parliament, I think I have learned also a lesson that the president said even the CDF must do something in terms of solving food crisis in Kenya and also in education. So for me, I was happy that he touched that area, which is really affecting my place.
Thank you very much. Also, the president has been very keen on the issue of the youth, and he says that if we do not look into this country and wrong the wrongs that have been there, probably the youth are going to get lost, and also the direction that they are going to go is not. So one of the youthful members of parliament, KJ, is here, and I'm also joined with another one here, probably to talk about this issue of the youth, corruption, and how it should be tackled so that we can protect the generations to come. What do you think of the president's speech with regards to the youth?
Well, thank you very much, Mureithi. And I have to say that if there is a clarion call that the president has made in his speech today is the fact that he's stated that there is no turning back. He has been able to enumerate the number of progress that we have made as a country. But we ought to remember, even as we address very specific issues, that the State of the Nation address is normally an overarching address on all the issues that the president is presiding over. So what he has presented today are actually 3 reports. There is one report on national values, there is a report that has to do with the economy, and then there is a report to do on security. Those are the reports that he presents in the State of the Nation address. Now, specifically to the issue of the youth, one quotable bite that the president has given in his State of the Nation address is the fact that he has said that we need to live a country that we are proud to give over to the coming generations. And he actually pronounced himself as saying that he will be the president who will build a nation that we can desire to live for our youth. So he is cognizant of the pressures that the young generation is facing. And in his overarching statement, which is the State of the Nation address, he has addressed issues like the Big Four, which is the Marshall Plan for the midterm, so as we aim to achieve Vision 2030. And he has said that there will be need for concerted effort, not only from the presidency, but from organs like Parliament in allocating budgets, from organs that are tasked with building some of these policies that are favorable to the youth. So I'd like to say that generally he has made a State of the Nation address that is really good for the country, but actually really bad for you media people, because I know you are expecting to hear that people will be strangled, people will be thrown out of offices, and what he has done is that he has come together as the icon or the representation of national unity, and you could hear applauses from both sides of the divide, meaning that he has given quite a middle-of-the-road State of the Nation address. And I'd like to say that there's something positive to look forward to as we resume back after we reconvene as Parliament, because the issues, the specific issues you're asking, Mureithi, are to be discussed and debated in this House for the right action. Thank you very much.
Well, Mheshimiwa Nzambia, you're very, very particular about education. What do you feel the president has been able to address, and was the speech adequate to your specification or to the specifications of Kenyans?
Thank you. Let me first start by appreciating the president for at least outlining 2 key issues. For any country to prosper, first, peace must prevail. And insisting that the Building Bridges initiative as to continue, as to move on, to bring the country together as a factor of unity. It will make, it is a factor of stabilizing the country economic-wise. Secondly, the president has actually said there is no turning back on these issues about corruption. And let me tell you one thing. For any country to move on economic-wise, corruption has to be dealt with to the zero level. And in that case, let me assure you, though most of the people were disappointed, it's like they were disappointed, they were waiting for the naming of the corrupt people or the executive, of which, according to the rule of law, it is not possible. But we hope from next week or from tomorrow, all will be done to bring those who have been corrupt into the limelight. Then, to summarize on the issue of education, the president has actually said we should try to make sure we pass the budget meant for education to make everything sustainable. Thank you, sir.
Well, also there is ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi here, and we would really want to hear what are his comments on the president's speech and what he thinks, whether was it adequate or. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here. And from your judgment of the president's speech, now that he has been able to deliver it, and probably from what we've heard even from some of the members of parliament and also what Kenyans are reacting, they expected quite a radical, far-reaching ramifications towards corruption. You have even been quoted as saying that it is time that we now saw watu wamewekwa pingu. Do you believe that the statement by the president is far-reaching enough to your specifications with regards to what you've wanted to watu wawekwe pingu?
Well, One, the president spoke very firmly on the issues of corruption. But I must admit that as much as he's committed to the fidelity of the law, and he said that he's waiting that anybody who will appear in court, then he expects them to quit once they appear in court. But I think the honorable thing that should have come out, as much as the president wants to follow that process, the level of despair out there is much higher than he imagines. And what I would have expected is that for him to also say that rather than wait to be arraigned in court, if you know you have been a regular visitor to these investigative agencies and there's something they are zeroing in on, why wait? Do the honorable thing and resign. Because integrity is also a two-way chapter. You do not expect the state and the government to uphold issues of integrity and follow the details of the law, but you yourself, knowing very well that you have embarrassed the same government, you are the subject of a very serious interrogation, and you continue to sit there. How on earth do you believe that people will have confidence in the investigation when those who are being investigated are still firmly in the position they're sitting in? So to that extent, I believe...
Right, let's begin from what the president said and where the president began his speech this afternoon. And the president is very upbeat that the state of the nation is very strong. And I have two very strong ladies here on the panel to help us discuss further what the president said. Jennifer Shamala, nominated member of parliament, and Suba South member of parliament, Millie Odhiambo, also joins us on set to talk about this. I like to hear the highlights, what stood out for you. But from where the president started, Jennifer, is the state of the nation really as strong as the president said?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And he started out by saying the state of the nation is strong. We do have challenges. We are not avoiding these challenges. And then he was very categorical on what he was not going to turn back. Transforming the economy, no turning back on environmental sustainability, no turning back on the Building Bridges initiative because of the cohesion and the war against corruption. Okay. And at the end, he actually said the war against corruption is a war for the soul of this country. The state of the nation is strong. Indeed, he said that we have 8.7 billion USD in reserves for 5.6 months of import cover. So I would say that, yes, I agree with him, the state of the nation is strong. I agree that other things were that he said that we were not going to use the vigilante justice way. I had indicated to you as we met on Tuesday on TV that I didn't foresee any sackings. Probably because they're waiting to finalize with the investigations, but he was very clear. He said, with the cornerstone of our country is the rule of law.
Okay.
And should anybody be charged, they must step aside.
All right. So from where you sit, the state of the nation, you agree with the president. Millie, from where you sit, is the state of the nation that strong that the president can confidently say that the state of the nation is strong?
Well, you have to understand the perspective of a president that is the head of the nation, and he must give a country hope. Okay. So what he's doing is giving the country hope. He's acknowledging that there are challenges that the country is facing. He has acknowledged that one of the things that is eating at the soul of the nation...
Raise your mic, yes.
Sorry, one of the things that is said is eating at the soul of the nation is corruption. But then he has also emphasized that the adherence to rule of law. That even as we are dealing with issues of corruption, that we will adhere to rule of law. And for me as a person who comes from a human rights background, that is okay. I think I'm always consistent on this, that I do not believe in mob justice. Okay. I believe in people going through, the rule of law, due process. And for me, therefore, that is okay. But again, from what, going back to what we even said the other day with Jennifer, that the judiciary must now know that speed is the name of the game. That when cases are brought before the judiciary, speed is the name of the game, and the judiciary must act fast and to restore confidence in the judiciary.
Okay.
Yes.
And on that note, he even mentioned that he's not purporting to direct Parliament or direct the judiciary on what to do. I want to divide this into about 5 subsects. Corruption, agriculture, security, national unity, education, the economy, and independence of the institutions. Well, he mentioned that the state of the nation is strong. Where does that leave the economy? Because we know how huge our public debt is. Millie, you can go.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought you were starting with Jennifer. What I can say, again, based on what I was telling you before, and I think some of the details you'll find in the reports that were tabled in Parliament. I don't think, if you look at the size of the reports, it will not give you all that.
Okay.
But one of the things that the president is saying that, yes, we are acknowledging challenges. The public debt is huge. Kenyans have been complaining. But at the same time, he's saying that the government is investing in things that are supposed to spur economic growth. Based on what he's talking that should be spurring economic growth, that is why he's saying the state of the country is strong. I'm sure a lot of, even if when he was talking about the economic growth, at the ordinary level, a lot of people may not agree because, again, we are still talking about joblessness. A lot of people are still saying, they are not feeling it at an individual level.
Okay.
But if you compare it, say, to 1 year or 2 years ago, just after the election, then I think comparatively it's much better.
Okay.
And I think for me, the underlying issue there is also the fact that the economy cannot grow where there's a division, where there's a lack of cohesion, where every day if you wake up, we are running around and you are throwing tear gas as we scream Tibim. You cannot grow an economy under that sort of situation.
Okay.
So that is why you can see he was very strong and very categorical about the issues of cohesion and building bridges initiative.
Okay, and as you answer that, Jennifer, relate to us what is in reserve and the public debt.
Okay, okay, I don't have the details on the public debt, but what is clear is that he said that
right now.
Is 6% economic growth. Of course, not forced, but though I don't know what the word I'm looking for is now, is prompted by public-private sector investments. He said that we do have, which is not bad, USD 8.7 billion in reserves. Yes. Now, economic growth, he gave and he touched on it, is in manufacturing and vehicle assembly power plants. Also with adding value with regards to the leather industry in Kikomba. He talked about farmer-centric reforms. He said that 4,400 water pans, which can hold 6 million cubic liters of water, have already been developed around the country. He also addressed the fact that 1.7 trillion was transferred to the counties and that there was no turning back on devolution.
Okay. Okay, let's move to the other area that really caught my attention when he said we have chosen the hard road of building unity and cohesion over the easy path of division. That really caught my attention because that's where they're headed, and that's one of the things that they said, we are not turning back.
Yes, I don't know whether he said it was a hard road, and maybe it could be perceived as hard for people who were when you look at the two big parties, it was NASA and Jubilee, and had such entrenched positions, and even the vitriol in the House when in 2017, we can remember that. I think that what he said and what he was telling us, that there is no way. Uhuru Kenyatta is working for his legacy. And that one of the things that has not been touched on was the 10 billion fund for historical injustices that we didn't. He is working for a legacy. And he understands that he cannot do this in a divided country. Again, I go back to the peer review. The African peer review report that was launched last week. And it said that it was corruption and our ethnicity, politics that is mobilized around ethnicity. And he wants to leave a cohesive Kenya. He wants us to deal. It is time, yes, that we are fighting for the soul of this nation with corruption. He is going to deal with the historical injustices because they must be recognized and those people must be compensated. So he is now working for his legacy. And indeed, I don't think it's hard. Coming together is never hard. It's being separated that's very hard, especially when you're all in one country.
Okay, I think it's based on the fact that it was not easy even embracing the other side. But Millie, what do you think? Choosing the hard road than rather the easier way out?
I would actually call it a hard road because the path to peace is never easy. Actually, I think the easiest thing is violence, because for violence, all you need to do is pick a stone and beat up somebody. I was just looking at some of the, the images that are coming from South Africa and the way they are, hacking people. And I'm even glad that the president talked to the issue of Pan-Africanism. But what I can tell you that peace, and a lot of people don't realize that, but peace is much more difficult to realize because we have entrenched divisions based on our ethnicity, based on our political stance. And therefore, for me, the fact that he spoke very strongly to the issue of cohesion is really, really significant. And I can say, I have said this before, not even just this parliament, but even in the last parliament, that I really wouldn't care much, even if President Uhuru doesn't build roads or does manufacturing or whatever, but if he does two things, this country will be forever grateful. And he actually said the correct words, that he would go to the soul of the country, dealing with corruption, and secondly, uniting Kenyans. Yeah. And I'm really, really sad that there are people that when you talk about uniting Kenyans, that they think that is a problem. Again, I go back to what I quoted when we were with you the other day, that even when you look at the book of Nehemiah, when Nehemiah was rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, there were Sanballats and Tobiases that were not encouraging, and they were saying even a little fox will bring down this wall. So I want to encourage the president to continue being a Nehemiah and to rebuild the wall of this country.
Okay, and finally, perhaps let's talk about the other pillar of the government that he said. He said the national security is strong. And one of the things he said about this is that they'll continue press against the war on terror, and Kenya cannot be stopped by evil, right? The fact that this is a war that he has been fighting, I think during his term we've had most attacks in this country, and now he's coming out strongly again to enforce this sentiment that the state of national security is strong. First, do you believe we've gotten to that level that we can say authoritatively that the national security is strong, Jennifer?
Yes, I do. If you remember, sometime last year, there was actually reports of Al-Shabaab planning to attack at this parliament itself and the Supreme Court. And I believe that a lot of attacks have been thwarted. We had this very extremely unfortunate and sad incident of Riverside District 14. And yes, and the fact that we were also told that there are 2,000, I didn't realize this, 2,000 CCTV cameras in Nairobi and Mombasa. And I can attest to it. I think I was in Mombasa last weekend for a committee meeting, and we saw a clip on social media of 4 men on a motorbike who snatched a woman's handbag. Yes. Within 24 hours, they had been arrested. Yes. So, and the fact that 5,000 weapons had been repossessed during the ongoing arms verification process. So, and then he addressed the 15,000 Nyumba Kumi clusters that have been established. When you do that, when the security of a country begins with its citizens, then indeed, yes, I believe that it is strong.
Okay. Millie.
Well, I would want to say that to some degree, I acknowledge that there's work that is going on in terms of the security. You know, Kenya has been such a soft target for terrorists. But beyond that, actually, one of the things that I picked that perhaps may not have been seen is the issue of trafficking in persons that he also spoke to. Yes. And I was very happy because we have a lot of Kenyan women and girls that are trafficked across borders. And he said that, you know, there's a lot that the government is already doing in relation to trafficking in persons. But in relation to the local, you know, cases of insecurity, I think most of us can see now that because of the CCTV, there's enhanced security. But again, I think I'll go back to this, that the president kept saying and acknowledging that there are challenges. And because we are working together, we are not in government, but we are working together, then it means that we appreciate those challenges. We know that they're there, but we are working together with the government to see how we can move the country forward.
Right. So, we have about 2 minutes, so I'll ask the final question a minute. Is this assuring enough when he said that the pursuit of corruption will be undertaken strictly within the law? We know that this war has been politicized, but is that assuring enough, Jennifer?
It's because we're not a banana republic. You don't want, it has been done. And I'm not suggesting that where it was done, that country was a banana republic. Jerry Rawlings took his generals and had them executed on a beach. Uhuru Kenyatta has been on record and saying, what do you want me to do? To put them before a firing squad at Uhuru Park? He can't do that. We are governed by the rule of law, so we must conform to it, that we don't have any other way. And like Honorable Millie said, the ball is now with the courts. Okay? We have these court cases dragging on and dragging on. They should be able to, within 6 months or at least maximum a year, finalize these cases.
Okay, Millie, finally.
Well, what I can say is that let us give support to the investigative arms and not politicize corruption. And I think when people say do not politicize corruption, it doesn't mean that do not mention my name. It basically means that if you are named as corrupt, including Millie Odhiambo, prepare before the correct investigative bodies. I said in the past parliament, my committee on agriculture was named as corrupt. And we appeared before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to answer to those charges. So let nobody scream and say, oh, you know, I'm being targeted because I'm Luo, because I am in this party, or because I am not shaking hands, or because I'm shaking legs. If you have been named as corrupt, and the president has assured people that the due process will be followed, then don't scream and say that we are being targeted. The rule of law will be followed.
Okay.
Due process will be followed.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Millie Odhiambo and Jennifer Shamala. Thank you very much. And this analysis continues tonight, right here on NTV tonight. And we'll have a panel to look deeper into what the president said. Plus, we have a lot of stories coming up regarding this. We'll be breaking it down for you in relation to corruption, agriculture, security, national unity, education, and the economy at large. And, of course, the independence of the institution. And to crown it all, the president said he does not presume to direct Parliament or the judiciary on what to do. A good place to end this live broadcast from here. We'll be definitely having Swahili coming in with NTV Jioni a little bit later on, but stay with us and stay on NTV. My name is Ken Mijungu. Have a good evening.